Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Put 91. We are talking to you guys today, what about leadership? You guys wanted me to talk a little bit about, how, leadership can be affected and how they suffer oftentimes in silence. This will be a bit more interactive, so please do get involved if you're on the live chat. Leave questions, leave your comments. I will try to answer them and try to collate with them as well. So, and also there's a link in the chat. If you do want to join in and have your say, we'll be here for no more than an hour. But if no one joins after the half an hour mark, we're gone, okay? Let's talk a little bit about today about leadership. I think the last few days we've been talking talking from a perspective of relationships. And I gave my story about how certain things have happened to me that's made me think in a particular way. But as we were talking together and reasoning together in the last few days, we had a topic that came up about leadership, and I thought, okay, why not tackle it? I've done some leadership back in the past, and I remember the difficulties of being in a leadership position and how hard it can be being a leader in that situation. I think one of the craziest things about leadership is the fact that, of course, when we talk about leadership, it's about being an influence for everyone else. It is about being able to have a set of behaviors used to help people align a collective direction, to execute strategic plans, and to continually renew an organization, if you want to call it that, right? So that's one aspect, right? But there is a very real silence and suffering that happens when you are in a place of leadership that sometimes doesn't often get said. I mean, if you're in a church sphere, you've probably heard the conversation before. Church leaders are always suffering, right? Heard that many, many times. But if you have been a leader before, you know how stressful it is. And it is very difficult and it's very tough because of the expectations and the way that people view you in the relationship when it comes to leadership. There's often these very tricky nuances that come along with being in leadership that makes it also very difficult about what you can share and what you can't share with those who are in your team, right? So that's a conversation in itself. So before we get into that any deeper, talking about that, please like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. Look, we really want to be able to have a real conversation, so please don't be afraid to comment in the comment section and in the chat as well, and let us know your thoughts and opinions. Leadership, why leaders suffer so much in silence. Having been in leadership for a little while, I did a little bit of leadership for youth ministry, in youth ministry church, right? We used to run a WhatsApp youth ministry. Shout out to anybody who's watching who knows what I'm talking about. We used to have a ministry called Christ Embassy ministry, whatever, right? And it was a really cool youth ministry. We had youth leaders, we had Bible study, we had prayer nights, do you know what I mean? We had games nights. It was fun, and it was fun, it was stressful, and it was tough, and it was annoying, and there was a lot of stuff that was going on with it, right? From a spiritual perspective, there's a lot of warfare that was going on. But from just a leadership perspective of just practicality, some of the difficulties of being a leadership, let me just say some of these things. Maybe you understand what I'm saying when I say this, why leadership becomes so stressful. Everybody looks up to you. You must have unlimited time. They can call you at 2 a.m. if they need to. Nobody checks up on you. Everybody assumes that you're good. When crisis hits, you're expected to know, or expected to lead or to do, expected to have the answers. You have daily arrows and daily pressures upon your neck, okay? Accountability of tasks often rest on you. When you want to rest, you can't even rest because people will bring something else to your table, whether it's the task itself, whether it's dealing with the relationship and the man management, whether it's the organization, whether it's external factors, whether it's your own household. There is always something that is taking away a little bit more of your time and your energy as a leader. And no one even talks about, we talk about this, but this is heavy. Betrayal. Oh, we can talk, that's a whole life in itself. Betrayal, right? If we want to talk about something about leadership, let me tell you something. Betrayal. If you're not ready to be betrayed, don't bother. Okay, Jesus did it, had Judas, but I'm telling you, if you're not ready to be backstabbed, if you're not ready to be stabbed in the back, this ain't the job for you. Leadership ain't it. You better be a follower, because I can guarantee you, I can absolutely guarantee with a Denzel Washington accent, you are gonna be betrayed. Someone is gonna look at you in the eye. Someone's going to look at you in the eye. Someone's going to stand there with you. Someone's going to be like, I got your back. Turn around and they stab you right in the back. Okay? All right? So I know that being in a position of leadership is very, very difficult. And the final one of this is that being in leadership, you're used to doing things alone. And when I say alone, what that means is not that you don't have a team, but often the fact that a lot of things rest on your head and you have a lot of responsibility that also rests on your head, right? So that can be very, very difficult. So those are some of the things that make leadership itself very difficult and not an easy place to be in. And it kind of relates to what we said yesterday, which is that you need what I call a good, how do we call it? What do I call the word now? A good team around you, sense of support network. You need to have a good support network, right? And I believe that when you're a leader, you need to have other people who are leaders, and it doesn't really matter what industry they're in. Just need other leaders, okay? Other people that understand the difficulties of having to be in a place of leadership, having to be a forerunner, being on the front line, being the one that plants a flag, right? You need other people that understand that mindset, because the way that they support you is completely differently. Also, you don't have the conflict of interest of somebody who's meant to be following you now becoming far too close to you, that when it becomes a struggle, that the line, you know, how much can I share? Now, if you look at the Jesus model, which is the 12, is it the 12, the 3, and the 1, right? The 12, the 3, and the 1, okay? And what that essentially is that there are levels to the inner circle that you're going to have, right? I call it the Jesus model, the 12, the 3, the 1. We always hear about the 12 disciples that rolled with Jesus. And in fact, the 12 is actually, after the 12 is 72. So the 72, the 12, the 3, the 1. And so what you see is that the 12 that start with disciples, then we have the 3, and then we have the 1. And the one person that's close to you, that's close to his bosom. And that model, what it means is that there are always layers and there are levels to how you relate information to. You know, the Bible says that, you know, the one that was close to Jesus was the beloved one, the one that would rest on his bosom, right? He knew some things. That's why his particular chapter seems to be so detailed in a particular way. The way he talks about Jesus in John just seems so different to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because he has a completely different perspective when he deals with Jesus. But it's a support network that you need, right? And the support network, you need other people that also are leaders within that space. So let me give you an example. When I was doing the youth ministry, you know, at the time I was doing it. I began alone, or at least I began with 3 other leaders, and then I employed to have around about, I think we got to about 8 leaders in the end, right? With different jobs and different titles. And the reason being is because I needed a support network. I needed people that I was going to be able to have a conversation with. I needed people that when you see something, I can chat to, right? And and let me be honest with you, some of you need to be cussed out, okay? Yeah, let's be honest. Some of you and I need to cuss you out in the safety of other leaders. I need other leaders who understand why I'm cussing you out right now, okay? I can't go and tell Jesse and Smith that I cussed your colleague out, because no. You need other people that understand your position, other leaders who know there is a code of ethics, that what happens here, what gets discussed here, doesn't go outside, okay? And I say that with looseness, and I'm kind of joking around a little bit, but the reality of the situation is that because of the support network, that's why some leaders burn out. Because in reality, you need rest and recuperation, but you also need a hedge around you to protect you from some of the madness that happens. It's actually biblical, right? And I'll give a biblical example to explain what I'm describing here and discussing in this particular situation, right? So if we go to, I'm going to go to Exodus. I'm going to go to Exodus 19. Yeah, I'm going to go to Exodus 19. Okay, hold on. No, I'm in the wrong chapter, I think. I'm in the wrong chapter. I think I'm in the wrong chapter, yes. Yes, cool, I got it. Yeah, fantastic. All right, cool. Exodus 18, I apologize, guys. So I'm going to put it on the screen so you guys can see it. You know, it's important, you know. It's one of the greatest lessons I learned about leadership was actually from the Bible. And the Bible gives great leadership advice. So if you ever want some leadership advice, go to the Bible. Okay, now I'm going to read this excerpt from Exodus 18, verse 13. Okay, now it's not a Bible study, but I thought I'd bring this to you because this is how I learn. So, yes, we're going to go to Exodus 18, verse 13. Jethro. So, just to give you a bit of understanding, Moses, if you don't know Moses, who he is the chosen one that God has called for to go and deliver his people, Israel, out of the hands of the Egyptians, okay? All right, the equivalent would be sending Martin Luther King to go and free the black people from the white folks in this time and age, okay? Now, of course, I'm being facetious again. It's not the same thing, but just to give you an idea. And then Jethro is the father-in-law of his wife, okay? Zipporah, okay? So Jethro comes in and Jethro is like his father-in-law, and he's noticing Moses' leadership. He's like, yeah, bro, I see what you're doing. But look what he's going to say to him, okay? It says this: the next day, Moses took his seat to hear the people's disputes against each other. They waited before him from morning till evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he asked, "What are you really accomplishing here? Why are you trying to do this all alone, while everyone stands around you from morning till evening?" Moses replied, "Because the people come to me to get a ruling from God. And when a dispute arises, they come to me, and I am the one who settles a case between the quarreling parties. I inform the people of God's decrees and give them his instructions." Okay? And then then Jethro says, "This is not good." Moses' father-in-law exclaimed, "You're going to wear yourself out and to the people too. This job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. Now listen to me and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you. You should continue to be the people's representative before God, bringing their disputes to him. Teach them God's decrees and give them his instructions. Show them how to conduct their lives. But select from all the people some capable, honest men who fear God and hate bribes. Appoint them as leaders over groups of 1,000, 150, and 10. They should always be available to solve the people's common disputes, but have them bring the major cases to you. Let the leaders decide the smaller matters themselves. They will help you carry the load, making the task easier for you. If you follow this advice, and if God commands you to do so, then you'll be able to endure the pressures, and all these people will go home in peace." I mean, listen. That is coming from somebody who's not even a Christian. You know, Jethro wasn't a Christian. He was serving other gods. Yeah? "And I will serve no other foreign gods." Like, he was serving other gods, right? So, but he had the wisdom to see that actually, when it comes to leadership, you know, that, hey, look, this will be a good advice. Now, the things that he highlighted are quite interesting, because what he highlighted was the difficulty of being in leadership. He sees the great work that Moses is doing, but he also sees the fact that he's overworking himself. In leadership, this is what actually happens a lot of times. We overwork ourselves because the support network isn't often there, right? The support network it's not always available. And I said this yesterday, that a lot of times we don't want to build it because we feel like we have to do it alone. A lot of times we're afraid of building a support network because it means reaching out. We're afraid because it means being vulnerable. We're afraid because it means sharing some of our weaknesses, and sometimes sharing some of our problems and things that we may not do very well, or we may be looked at, judged, or ashamed, or embarrassed by this. And so we don't want to share those things. But actually, really and truly, it really does help. It shares a load that you ordinarily would have to do by yourself. Let me give you another example. I had a friend, and shout out to my best friend actually. She ran a ministry for young people too during her university days. And immediately she told me that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to support you. And here's how I'm going to support you. Whenever you need to talk about what's happening, come and talk to me. That's all. Yeah? And whenever I need to give her advice, I give her advice that, hey, be careful of this, be careful of that. But that's it. I never overstepped my boundary. I never told her what to do. I never forced her. I said, hey, I'm just here to support you. That's it. As somebody who's gone through leadership, I don't want to try and overtake. I'm not trying to infiltrate. I just want you to know that whatever you're doing, I want to let you know that, hey, look, I'm supporting you. Right? And sometimes that can just be you being a listening ear, because as a leader, you are oftentimes so engulfed with trying to do something for other people, you forget yourself, right? And it's again goes back to that example where it says how, you know, on a plane, it says put the mask on yourself, because when you put it on yourself, what's going to allow you to happen is that you can put it on your child. If you put it on your child first and you pass out, you're done, right? So it's important that you do you first so that you can also give out. And actually, this is a principle that Jesus also enlisted in his leadership. You find out there are several moments where Jesus goes back to the wilderness, or goes, sorry, now I say this, he goes alone and goes and recuperates and then comes back out again, right? So one thing that leaders will suffer with in silence is that if you don't get that rest and recuperation, right, and you don't have that time alone, you're going to suffer, right? And a lot of leaders suffer and they burn out because we want to do things on our own, and because we're afraid of letting other people support us, but also because sometimes the support isn't necessarily there and we have to build that support. And that can be very tiring too. And I totally understand that. I'm not, you know what I mean? These are just some of the things that happen to people that when they're leading, right? People don't even think, listen, people don't even ask you if you've eaten today. Yeah? They've not even asked if you've eaten today. They don't care, because what they are is feed me. Feed me. As long as I get my bills paid. You know what I mean? So being a leader can also be and what I didn't add in there is that being a leader can be a thankless job. Right? Being a leader too can be a thankless job. And that can also be the sadness as well. You get betrayed, you're going to cry. But the one that really hurts you the most, people will take from you and never thank you. People will take from you and not even thank you. Never thank you. Oh, won't even utter a thank you. But always be expecting to receive from you. My God. And a thank you doesn't have to be that it's monetary. Sometimes it's just people just appreciating the work that you do. Right? Yeah, that's all. Nothing of the crazy sorts. I want to even bring another particular scripture to you guys. Because I think it's really powerful scripture as well. I got it. Okay. So I want to bring another scripture to you guys. I think this is another one about leadership as well, which will help people as well. Okay. Another great one here. Let me see this. Okay. That's a really good point as well, AW. Very good point. Yeah, very good point as well. Okay. So from Exodus 17, I'm reading from verse 8. This is a story of Moses. It's a really great story. Again, Moses, Moses is one of my guys. He's a great leader. So I liked his leadership style, right? The story of Moses in this situation is that he's going to fight the Amalekites, right? And the most powerful thing that happens is not the victory. The powerful thing is what happens before the victory and what God orchestrates to him, right? The story is that Moses is going to lift his hands up, okay? I'm going to lift my hands up, all right? And as he lifts his hands up, so long as Moses' hands stay up, Israel will win the fight. The moment his hands start to fall, Israel will start to lose the fight. Wow, what amount of responsibility on Moses' arms. Or what a great opportunity to show what kind of support network you have around you. Imagine somebody told you, you know what, you go into this business meeting, so long as you keep your hands up in this business meeting for the next 3 or 4 hours or next 3 or 4 days, you'll get a contract for 20 million. All of us will be jumping from the skies. Like, yeah, sure. Yeah, come after the 2-3 hours, your hand's going to be aching. What's you going to do? And this is the story here, again, about leadership and what happens in this moment. So we're going to read it and bring it to a foreground for you guys as well. It says, while the people of Israel were still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. Moses commanded Joshua, choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us tomorrow. I will stand at the top of the hill, holding the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Amalek. Meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed up to the top of the nearby hill. As long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Moses' arms soon became so tired he could no longer hold them up. I want to pause it there. Okay? I just wanted to pause it there so we can just deep what's happening here. Okay? Deep what's happening in this moment, right? Let me highlight it. Okay? Moses' arms soon became tired. He could no longer hold them up. Look, as long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. Okay? The moment he drops them, the Amalekites had the advantage. Because all of my help coming from the Lord, my help. Cause my help, all of my help coming from the Lord. Anyway, listen back to what I was saying. So, that's a little bit of a show off. I'm not gonna lie to you, my voice was feeling sweet, so I thought I'd sing a note or two. So listen, so in that situation there, right? Look what's gonna happen. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands. So his hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in battle. The reason why that story is so powerful is because, again, the support network is what brings this victory. Because had Moses gone there alone, his hand was starting to shake and to quake, and he was ready to drop that particular he's willing to drop that particular the staff in his hand, right? And they're about to lose the battle because he's overworked. I'm kind of talking to myself here. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am. I'm in that season, so I'm talking to myself. When I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself as well, guys. He's holding the staff up and he's like, I'm overworked. I can't do it all. And so the people around him are smart enough and wise enough to say, hey, first and foremost, let's get him a seat. Because a brother's been standing, a brother's been standing here. And this is a good point, Elsie. I was just about to go into this, right? The first thing they did is they actually went out and said, let me go and grab a seat, right? So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on, okay? Right? Now, he didn't tell them to go and do that. They went and did it. And I'll tell you why. Because they were understanding of the leadership role that he was in. Because leaders understand what other leaders need, right? Aaron, remember, also becomes a priest. So he knows what leadership also looks like, right? These are not people that are absent from the leadership role. They understand. So in that moment, when Moses' hand is starting to drop, they're not like, well, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Their first thing is, no, let's solve the issue. He's first of all, his arm is dropping. So what we're going to do is get him a seat, and then we're going to lift his hands. Right? Solution orientated. Great leaders come with great solutions. They don't ask what they can do, right? When I say don't ask, that's within reason. They come with solutions to the table. And that's why I said about building a support network of other people that understand your leadership role, because they won't have to be fed. They want to feed, right? They want to help. They want to be able to say, hey, bro, listen, have you considered this? Have you considered that? When I was going through, when I was doing my leadership for the youth ministry, I had a brother also too who was also involved, and he started giving me advice. Now, not every advice I took, but he gave me advice, and it really helped at the time. So, that is so important. That part is so important. And I was looking, I was like, okay, cool. It makes sense. So that is why that leaders will suffer in silence, because if you don't have leaders around you, the followers will always be followers. Right? They will struggle to see your point of view because they don't have your point of view. You get me? So it's important to understand how this works. But yeah, no, it's such a powerful thing. I loved that scripture. Like I said, I loved that Moses, and because it really did highlight leadership in a particular different way for me. And it really highlights a way that people think in that position when they're called to leadership. So, Rosemary said, that I'm too indecisive to be a leader. Every time, however, I make a wonderful errand. And that's, Rosemary, that's beautiful, right? That is beautiful. See, everybody has to know what position they can play. There's nothing wrong with someone being an Aaron or a her, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And that's still great leadership. Knowing that you're maybe not fit for the bill is also great leadership, but you're willing to be ready at the touch of a button. No problem at all. No problem at all. Right? But yes, leaders suffer in silence because, like I said, they see things on another level, and they have to always be in a space where they are ready and equipped to solve a problem with solutions. And that can be very tiring. Putting yourself in a position where you're always ready to solve an issue or being ready to have to solve a particular problem can be very tiring. So it's important to also understand, that having other leaders support you is so important. So very important. Elson said, are leaders born or they made? Both. Some people have just great leadership skills, and then they go through life, they're nurtured, and they are able to win. Right? Some people are born to be leaders. I believe they have the critical skills they are born with that make them naturally great leaders. And most people are made. They are made. They grow into them. They develop the skills. There's always exceptions to the rule, right? I think majority of people are made rather than born. You know what I mean? Majority of people are actually made, not born leaders. But there's always exceptions, isn't it? I always say there's always exceptions. But I think some people have some critical skills that make them great leaders. And there are people who you wouldn't necessarily think they're a great leader, but they develop over time beautifully. They learn the skills and the language and they're able to build structures and are able to understand how to lead people. And there are different types of leadership, because Samson is not the same as David. I always consider myself a bit more Samson than I am David, because Samson's a pace setter. Samson's leadership is like, I'm gonna set the pace. You're gonna see me. I'm gonna set the pace, and then everybody follows. They're different types of leadership. So that's another story in itself. Again, my time is almost up, so I don't even want to go too far into it, because we can talk about leadership styles that are also really kind of wavy as well. I love listening to that as well. AW said, I disagree somewhat. I think you need to ask followers their point of view to get their buy-in. You don't know everything, then make a decision. It depends on what you mean. I mean, what I'm describing in a sense of is that there is, when you're making decisions, it depends on what kind of business you're in, right? And I always say that there is a time for democracy, right? And there's a time for autocraticness. Sometimes there's no time for democracy. We ain't got the time, because there's an impending danger or emergency. And there is time where we are starting the beginning of the journey, brainstorming, trying to figure out some solutions. Yeah, well, definitely democracy and democratic kind of leadership works, absolutely, if we're trying to solve an issue. So yeah, it just depends on what the time of the season is, right? In terms of how you lead. I'm not saying that you never consult your team or anything like that. I wasn't saying that at all. This is more about the frustration and suffering of a leader. You have to be ready to suffer. Okay, all right? You have to suffer. In that situation, you have to be ready to suffer as a leader. It comes with sacrifice, and often at your expense. So that's probably one of the reasons why I ain't trying to get into it for a very long time. I've been running from leadership. I've been running from it for a very long time, because I know it costs to be in that leadership position. Okay, leadership is about servitude. It's not even about just making decisions. Leadership is really about servitude. You're in a place of serving other people. And I'm not gonna lie to you, sometimes I'm selfish. I don't want to be serving other people right now. That's actually why I ducked away from leadership roles in church and stuff like that for a very long time, because I don't have the heart right now to serve you. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to run away, but I can take it. I don't understand. Anyway, listen, guys, I gotta go. Okay, all right, I gotta go. All right, we will continue this next Friday. We can talk about leadership styles as well, which I love, and we'll get deeper into that as well. Right. So, We start again next week. Hopefully, when I do my therapy session, we'll break it down again once more. You know, we appreciate y'all. All right. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button. We appreciate you, and stay locked and stay loaded. We'll see you soon. Not you guys saying I'm